Yeah, welcome back here on what has been a very eventful day as the sun is setting, dusk has set in, and the college football weekend well underway here at the Grove. We started 3 hours ago with Lane Kiffin, and it took off from there. Let me say hello to Aidan Gallardo from the Daily Mississippian. We've spoken to him over the last year or two, and Michael Katz. I think we saw you a couple weeks ago here. Michael and Aidan. Aidan, you're on campus as a student. You're a senior. What's the vibe for this game?
There's hope. I mean, just because in years past, like, you see Alabama on the schedule, you think automatic loss. But this year it's different. We saw Alabama struggle last week. But Ole Miss has they've really taken off, especially through the ground game. And I don't think it will be a blowout like last season, but it'll definitely be much tighter, closer contest.
Okay, Michael, it's been a busy week with Lane Kiffin. Some weeks are more interesting than others. He's
never boring.
Like he has just taken command of the stage and is a coach, a critic, a commentator, a pot stirrer. What's it been like?
It's. I always tell people you're never lacking for content. This week it was goat fuel, which apparently is the opposite of rat poison.
A new one.
That was a new one. But you know, Lane he's the character, but he has a lot of respect for Nick Saban. I think that's obvious every time that they play. And I think he understands that Nick Saban did a lot for him in his career. And so this is going to be a really interesting game. I've gone back and forth on it. I think there's a lot of factors at play, obviously, but for me, it's they got to win up front. That is where Ole Miss has gotten in trouble against really good teams. Against LSU, Lane Kiffin says talent exposes you, and it doesn't get much more talented than Alabama. I know this isn't a typical Alabama team, but it's going to be tough. But regardless, I think Lane is he's going to have a good offensive plan. They're going to do they're going to try to run the ball, and they're going to have. And Jackson's going to have to make some plays, but this should be a really fun one.
Michael and Aidan, it's interesting with Kiffin because it doesn't seem to matter whatever the issue is. He turns it lately. When people came and asked him about his future a few weeks ago, he starts promoting other candidates. Now it's trying to deflect the GOAT. How does that play with your fellow students? I'm assuming they're pretty entertained.
Yeah, I mean, Kiffin's a character, but regarding the Auburn rumors and stuff like that, I don't think he's going to – I just don't see it realistic for him to go to Auburn just because I feel like he will be potentially put in a worse situation than he is right now. That's if he doesn't bring – say he brings in a couple of Ole Miss players with him to Auburn, but I just don't see it realistic. All of his come to the sip, his brand, just – in August, he said that he loves Oxford. He said that he needed Oxford more than it needed him. So I just don't see it realistic right now. But I think he's waiting for Saban to retire at Alabama. He's waiting for that job to open up.
He could expedite that tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Lane Kiffin's Lane Kiffin. He's not like most head coaches. So we'll just have to see and find out.
I will say this. Everything he says is with a purpose. He knows exactly what he's doing when he does his tweets, when he does a rat poison, when he does a goat fuel. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to get a message, whatever that message is, whether it's to recruits, to opposing coaches. He knows exactly what he's doing. And that's why it's just always an adventure. It's pretty great to cover.
Yeah, and I try to look at Kiffin from various sides. I mean, in some ways it's pretty easy to figure him out, but what I find interesting, you're both journalists, I'm just a talking head, but how quickly we all get in line behind whatever he says. Yeah. I mean, is there, I mean, I know you're covering the team, you're not really covering everything else. You are covering everything else around it, but Michael, does anybody ever say, oh, come on, Lane, I mean, we know where this is going, or it's just too much fun to interrupt the party?
I think there are moments when you think it's going to go a certain direction, and it goes a very, very different direction, and I think that's when he's at his best, is when it goes not off the rails, but it goes in a different direction. And we've talked about this before. I think the thing that people really respect about Lane Kiffin is that he is honest and he says what's on his mind. He doesn't sugarcoat it, and that does get him in trouble. It's not a fit for everybody. But for here, it just works. It's just, Oxford has a chip on its shoulder, and I think they like the fact that he's, not irreverent, but he doesn't always play by the rules. He does things a little bit differently. It's such a good fit, and he really, I think people love the fact that he's willing to say what maybe other coaches don't.
Aidan, do you see it that way? Because, you're a student, but you're also about to get out of here. It's not like you just showed up for freshman orientation. What's it been like to watch this process of Kiffin's grow? And it's at a pretty high level right now, to say the least.
So my freshman year at Ole Miss, Matt Luke was the coach. With all due respect to Matt Luke,
nice guy.
It was, nice guy, but it was kind of a rough year. But then when Kiffin came, I feel like the whole vibe in Oxford just changed for the better. Year after year, his teams are getting better and better, and it's really fun to watch. I think he's really put himself at a level that separates him from all the other head coaches. I'd say he's pretty close to Nick Saban's level of head coaching. So.
Yeah, in terms of notoriety, he really and I think you said it a minute ago, Michael, but 9 years ago, this guy got shown the door, and I frankly wondered if he'd ever get another job. He was really out.
I don't know if you remember. I was at USC when Lane. I was the sports editor of the Daily Trojan. The year that USC was the preseason #1 and won 7-6, and then that next year. Was when the tarmac incident happened. That was my first year in the real world. I think about that a lot. And people have asked me, what is the difference between Lane Kiffin then and now? And I think the biggest thing, yes, he's older, he's more mature. He's comfortable with who he is, and I think he's okay with things being said about him. It doesn't get under his skin the way it did. He doesn't have thin skin, and I think when you're in Los Angeles, it's a very different spotlight. He was in his early 30s as the head coach at USC. That's a lot, and things went sideways. I think we all know that, but he just seems a lot more at ease, at peace, and he's okay having a laugh now. And it's just, when I remember him, back then, that was never even a possibility that he was going to make a joke or say something funny. It really is crazy how far he's come.
But also, not to get too deep into Southern Cal weeds, but he's following an absolute legend out there, a larger-than-life character who won a couple of national championships and probably could have won a few more. Talking about the game, let's turn to that with Aidan and Michael. I asked Kiffin this earlier, and I don't think the game before it is going to really play a big role, but there is a chance if Arkansas upsets LSU in the early game tomorrow. This game already with tremendous impact could even be more significant. Just your thoughts on what could be happening within a short period of time tomorrow afternoon.
So I feel like the focus that Lane Kiffin has and his team has is just to beat the opponent in front of them. Just control what you can control.
Right.
Everything else will happen. And at the end of the season, just look at the standings, whatever happens. If LSU loses against Arkansas or whoever else they're playing against.
Yeah, they've got to lose both games.
Yeah. But if that happens, great. If that doesn't, just you got to move on. So, I would just say control what you can control.
How big, it seems like I've asked this question a few times this year about when Alabama, but beating Alabama means what to this campus, Michael, and this university in terms of
the last time it happened here, I think goalposts were taken down and marched around Oxford. It's a big deal. I know this isn't this is still a really good Alabama team. It's not the Alabama team maybe we thought it was going to be, just based on the preseason stuff, but this is still the gold standard of college football. This is the program of programs, the dominant one historically the last decade and a half. Just where Ole Miss was a few years ago, You brought up Matt Luke. This would not have been a conversation. No. Just how far this program has come in a few years, and the way that it's been done with the recruiting, the transfer portal, playing. You got to play the hand you're dealt, and the hand has changed a lot in college football, and Lane Kiffin has really kind of handled it the right way. And I went over Alabama. I think it would be a signifier of just that. Ole Miss has won a lot of nice games. They've won some big games, but they haven't won the big game. It seems like this would be the big game.
It always is. Aidan Gallardo joining us from the Daily Mississippian, and of course, Michael Katz. Always great to see both of you. Thanks so much. And we have more to come. We've had a busy show. I mentioned Kiffin. We had the Chancellor on, Glenn Boyce, so many other important guests. Chris Doran will take a look at the weekend, including this game, when we come back.